You ever have a perfect plan? You know what you're gonna do on a boat, you get to the boat and you go to do your plan and it does not work. The boat does not cooperate, everything goes wrong. Well, in this video, I'm gonna explain what I did and how this boat went completely wrong, but how I fixed it. So if you go and watch the video that I made, I'm gonna leave it right here. If you watch this video, it's gonna give this entire video more context. So what I did on this boat in this video is I went ahead, I showed you guys my quoting process. So I walked you through the entire boat here, and what I thought the boat needed was, I thought it needed 1,000 grit sanding, maybe 1,000 grit sanding, and maybe 2 steps of cutting and you know, wax to wax it. You know, you guys saw the video. If you go watch that video, I just put the link in that video is in the description down below. If at any time you want to go watch that and then come back, this video will make a lot more sense to you guys. Like every boat detail ever, things do not go as planned. If you are starting a boat detailing business, or if you own a boat detailing business, you know exactly what I'm talking about, that, you know, stuff doesn't ever go as planned. I mean, and if it does, it is a very, very rare instance. But with that said, even with things not going as planned, usually my system works. And in this video, I'm gonna explain why my system that I normally do, like you've seen in all my other videos, plain and simply just did not work for some reason. And it freaked me out for a second, but it actually grew me, because I'm like, man, in 5 years, I've never had where my system actually didn't work. But for some reason on this boat, the gel coat was super hard and I could not remove sanding marks. Now luckily, I stayed prepared and I had all the right equipment and the right sanding papers and everything to still get the job done. And that's what I'm gonna go ahead and explain to you guys in this video. And I'm gonna show some clips of me doing the boat. And also, I think I like what I did on this boat. I think the results actually came out maybe a little better than normal. Guys, like always, if you get any value out of this, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that little bell notification, so every time I make a video, it'll pop up. Also, all of the products that I talk about in this video are in the description down below. So if you click those links and you purchase those products, I get a small percentage of that sale, and I appreciate you guys for that. I'm gonna kind of point some things out here on this boat. Was that the gel coat is super hard. So the blue line on this boat right here, the blue line and the blue hull is paint. The white is gel coat. For some reason, the gel coat was extremely hard on this boat. So when I sanded it with my 1,000 grit, because I just thought it needed a quick 1,000 grit wet sand, even with the super cut compound, I could not remove the sanding marks, and it kind of freaked me out for a second. I used Mirka Abralon 1000, what is a very, very light sanding disc, and I still could not remove the sanding marks. Well, luckily I had some 2,000 grit and 3,000 grit Mirka Abralons in my truck. Okay, so guys, always, 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 I always have a stock of sandpaper, because if you get to a boat that you're trying to sand and for some reason the sanding's not going right, or like this boat, the gel coat was like too hard, you always want to have the products that you need to be able to get the job done. You don't want to have to be like, hey, I have to order more products, it'll be here in a week, 2 weeks, you know, and then put the job on hold. You always want to have everything on stock. So luckily I had everything in stock. I had the Mirka 500s, the Abralon 500s, the Abralon 1000s, the 2000s, and the 3000s. Well, what I ended up having to do, this is what kind of, you know, blew my mind, and I've done it in the past, but it's just not what I normally do, is I ended up having to wet sand this boat with 1,000 grit, 2,000 grit, and 3,000 grit. And then what I did is I used the Menzerna 400 on a white wool pad to cut it out and to shine it, and then I polished it with Menzerna 2500 to finish it out. With these steps, it literally made the gel coat perfect. I mean, the gel coat is literally perfect on this boat, and it actually surprised me, because I'm like, man, like when you buff finer, or I'm sorry, when you sand finer and finer and finer, you don't have to do as much compounding. You don't have to do as much cutting with the rotary buffers. Now, the rotary buffers can scar gel coat, you know, so you know, typically it is better to sand more, but it's gonna cost you more to sand more. Okay, these Mirka Abralon sanding pads are like $4 a piece, okay? I went through probably 20 sanding discs per grit on this entire boat, because we did do the entire boat. So you got to think, man, that added up very, very quickly. But the gel coat is perfect. With the gel coat being perfect, the customer did pretty much pay me for perfection, okay? This job paid me right at about $5 grand total to do, which is a really, really good price point. But I did not charge them for the 2 extra steps of sanding, because that was on me. All right, and that's what I said in the video before, like, do your test spot. And what the problem was is, if you go watch that other video, you'll see that I wasn't able to do the test spot when I booked the job. I gave him kind of a ballpark price, and then we booked the job. So I came out here to do the job, and then that's when I figured out, holy crap, it's not working. So what did I have to do is I had to do the test spot and figure out what to do. I was slightly, like, not really panicking, but I was like, oh my gosh, this is not going as planned. So unfortunately, I did not film that. And I really want to film how to do a test spot for you guys. But all the test spot is, you do by like a 2 foot by 2 foot section, you know, kind of a little bit bigger than the shoulder width section. And you just do your steps just to see if the gel coat comes out perfect. And in this case, when I did the 1000 grit and the 2 steps of cutting, literally you saw sanding marks and pigtails all in the gel coat, and I was like, oh my gosh. So what we had to do was just sand a little finer and finer to be able to get the gel coat perfect. You want to, have all of your grits on stock, okay? So I recommend keeping 500, 800, 1000, 2000, and 3000 grit on stock at all times, because you just never know when a boat, when a customer is paying you for perfection, you never know when you're going to use those grits. Now, I will say, if this was just a you know, compound and shine, I would not have done this, but the customer in this case was paying me for perfection, so therefore I went above and beyond, even though it cost me a little bit more, and I probably should have charged a little more, because I did, you know, 2 more steps of sanding. One, it was my fault because I did not do it, and I did not do a test spot, so I just kind of ate those charges. And 2, I just went the extra mile so that the boat looked the best that it can look. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna run kind of like what I did, so you guys can see kind of how I sanded and how I buffed. All right, so what this is gonna be, and I'm gonna explain it in the background. I just want you guys to see kind of my sanding process on this boat, my compounding process, and you know, and then all I did after these steps was just wax it. You can see how I do that in all my other videos, but go ahead and seal it up like normal. And all you have to do, guys, is watch what I'm doing in this video, and it's going to show you guys kind of how I sanded with the 1, 2, and 3000, and then I just buffed it with the Manzurna 400 and then polished it. So go ahead, watch this. I am going to throw some teaching in the background, and I hope you guys enjoy it. All right, so let's hop right into this. As you can see, we are going to start by washing it. All I have in the pump spray here is Dawn dishwashing soap and a scrub brush. Now, this is the extra soft bristle brush from Surehold. I have it linked in the description down below if you would like to purchase it. I really like it because you can switch different heads for different applications. And this brush is just nice and soft just to be able to wash the boat. So guys, first things first is we are going to wash the boat, and then we're going to hop to our first sanding step. So this is the 1000 grit wet sand. I'm using Mirka Abralon 1000. Okay, you can find it all in the link down below, like I said. And guys, all we're going to do here is we're going to do our side to side, up, down, side to side motion as best as we can. You can't really see it on camera here, but there's like 3 ridges. So where this blue line is on the top side, there's a lip right there, and then there's another lip, and then there's another lip right below the window. So you can't really do the up and down motion because there's like these little gaps, and your basically your sander would skip. So all you got to do in that case is just go side to side, go over the same section about 3 or 4 times. That's all I did, really, the whole thing. So now we're doing kind of the toe rail area. It's the same thing, as you can see, just side to side. I'll do a little bit of up and down, but I just do side to side. Now on the blue, because I did say earlier that the blue is painted, I did not go over the blue with the 1000 grit sandpaper because it was not necessary, but I did go over it with the 2 and the 3000 grit. So just kind of keep that note. Okay, so now we're gonna hop to our 2000 grit sand. So now this is actually the next day when I figured all this stuff out. Now I'm doing the 2000 grit, and as you can see, I'm moving a little slower than I did with the 1000 grit. The 1000 grit was a really quick cut pass, and now I'm really trying to cut out some of those deeper sanding marks that really would not come out, which was really weird. So all we're doing here, this is 2000 grit Abralon, Mirka Abralon again. and then we're going to run it on the speed setting about 5, and we're just gonna take our time, guys. And I think, you know, I did the whole boat, but for this video's sake, I just wanted to show you guys kind of the one side here. I used about 1 pad for every probably 4 feet. So like I said, I went through about 20 pads per grit on this entire top side, and as you can see here, I'm just wetting it down and just doing about 3-foot sections, and then I switch the pad. The pads usually will last a little bit longer than that, but for this case, I just wanted to cut as much as possible, and I wanted to be consistent as possible. One thing you always want to look for, like when you are wet sanding, is consistency, because consistency is everything. If you do one like a 5-foot section of one pressure and one speed, and then you change your pad, and then you do different pressure and different speed on the next section, it's not going to be a consistent cut. And guys, when you are doing your sanding, you always want to make sure everything is consistent. Even with your cutting, your compounding, your polishing, your waxing, whatever you're doing, consistency is everything. And like you can see, guys, I'm just wetting down the surface, and all I'm doing is sanding it back out. That's it. It's super simple, and keep your speed, keep your arm speed, everything completely consistent. So now we're gonna hop to the 3000 grit sand. So now this is Mirka Abralon 3000 grit, and it's the same speed setting, same technique. I'm gonna go through this one a little faster than the last two, just because everything is literally the exact same. It's just we're doing the 3000 grit Mirka Abralon instead of the 2 or the 1000 grit. So guys, like I said, keep your section nice and wet. Always spray down the area before and after you do a section to get the residue off, and you want to make sure the surface is completely clean. And what all we're going to do here is just going to run down the boat and then come back, and that's it. And then we're going to hop to our compounding steps. So now we are hopping into our compounding steps. Never mind Dan in the back here. We were doing the whole boat together, but for this teaching, just pay attention to me. So all I have here is the Presta white compounding wool pad. You can find it in the description down below, and I'm using Minzerna 400 on a white wool pad. Now guys, normally this is like the 3rd step, but this is our first cutting step because we went ahead and went all the way to 3000 grit sand. Now I will make a note here, I'm not going to so much teach on my buffing, but what I want to make a note here is if you're having trouble getting the 1000 grit sanding marks out, it does not ever hurt to sand higher. Now, the reason why I don't always sand higher, just on a super practical basis for my company, is because it costs me more. These discs, like I said earlier, cost about $4 a piece, and I went through 20 per grit. Now, if I would have stopped at 1000 grit and I only had to do the 2 and the 3000 grit, I could have saved, you know, what is that, 40 discs. Okay, so guys, just think about that. It adds up. Now compound is pretty cheap and pads are pretty cheap, so it is cheaper as a business to do less sanding, but it is more work, if that makes sense. So if you want a better quality job, it never hurts to do higher sanding, 2 and 3000 grit. Sometimes 3000 grit you don't have to do. The 1 and the 2000 will do fine. But like I said, if you want to go that extra step just to ensure that the sanding marks are going to be completely out, go ahead, sand 1, 2, and 3000 grit, and then do the Minzerna 400 on the wool pad. And then we follow up here with the white foam Lake Country force pad on the Flex 3401 VRG with Minzerna 2500. Minzerna 2500 is a super good polish for polishing out swirl marks. That's all we're doing. And guys, whenever you hit the wool pad with the Minzerna 400, it literally turned the lights on. I mean, look how glossy that toe rail is right now. You really can't make that up. The results on this boat were perfect because I took the extra time and I went ahead and did all the sanding steps. I took my time doing the buffing, and now we're doing the polishing. The reason why I wanted to make this video, and I hope y'all stuck through it, and if you stuck through it, comment down below and tell me, hey bro, I stuck with you. But you know, if you watch this whole video through, I know it's not like my typical, you know, tutorial video or whatever, but I think it was valuable because guys, we are always gonna run into problems. You're always gonna not know what to do, and I hope this video helps you if it's like, oh my gosh, this boat's not coming out. 1000 grit sandpaper is not doing it. I don't know what to do. I hope this video finds you right where you're at. If you're stuck, if you're struggling, that this video will help you out. So just saying 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 grit, hit it with the Presta white wool pad with the Menzerna 400, and then follow it up with Menzerna 2500. But if you don't have Menzerna 2500, you can always just follow it up with Menzerna 400 and it will work as well. So guys, thank you so much. Well guys, that is it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the little bell notification, and I look forward to seeing you guys in my next video. Let's go.
Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go